Hello, everybody. I'm Lori Joe Vest, and I am here with Kylie Metcalf, and we are on the team for Pop Speed Digital Marketing LLC. And we love to do these LinkedIn Live events and just kind of talk about what we run into out there in the wild in the digital marketing world. And today we're going to talk about websites. And I'm really glad we're doing this today, Kylie, because I just had an experience where we did a website for a client. She was just starting her business. She's an entrepreneur, so it's early on in her journey. And she had gotten it done by a company overseas that offered something like a $300 website.
Right.
And she showed me what they did for her. $300 is not a bad amount of money to throw at something like that to see what happens. If they did something awesome, maybe it would work for you, right?
Mhm.
But it was soulless. That's the only way I can say it. It was so generic and so, like, stocky, and the copy was very, I guess it was written by AI. So it
Mhm.
was very kind of pablum, right?
Yeah.
And she wasn't happy, and I was kinda glad she wasn't happy because that indicated that she knows marketing, and she's like, "This isn't gonna work for me." So
Right.
we ended up doing a website for her that was custom, that had photos of her and her clients and, information from her perspective that's very unique to her and her new agency. So, yeah, can you get a cheap website? Sure you can. But should you? No, you should not.
Right. Exactly.
So, Kylie, I'll let you pick this one up.
Yes. So as Lori said, it kind of felt like a really good time to talk about websites. We're pretty inundated with them right now. And it's just reminded us about there's so many components that go into building a website, generally speaking, but building a good one that
Mhm.
has all of the things that you might not think of, but you really should and need to have. So we've been thinking a lot about websites lately and put together a list of the things that we think it's most important to direct your focus towards
Mhm.
when you're putting together your website. Of course, we could, I mean, talk for hours upon hours of all of the things that go into website builds, but these felt like a very good just a priority list, really.
Yeah.
So let's talk about websites.
And when we say priorities, before you build your website, you should know what the website priorities are, but you should also know what your business priorities are.
Mhm.
Very clearly, what is it you're trying to accomplish? And then from there, what is your website trying to accomplish that's
Mhm.
related to that overarching big goal that you have for your business? So we're not talking about Stellantis's website. We're not talking about gigantic corporate websites. Those usually involve a lot of different people, including
Mhm.
people that do what's called UX, which is user experience. People go to people go to University of Michigan to get a degree
Mhm.
user experience. So it's a really specialized field. We're talking more about, mid-sized companies, mid-sized to smaller businesses who are usually kind of charged with putting their website up themselves. I mean, they may not do it themselves, but they're out looking for the vendor to do the work. They're looking for
Exactly.
the copyright of the designer. So just a few things to throw in there before we get started.
Yeah,
So
so I was going to say,
UX.
Lori, you took us right there. User experience is, I would argue, the most important thing for a website.
Mhm.
There are, as Lori alluded to, there it's so specific, it's so niche, and it's so important, and that's why it's its own field.
Yeah.
So while that's not something that you're necessarily going to be able to fully do in-house, or even with like an agency that's just kind of revamping your website, it's something that you absolutely need to think about and have a plan in place for. We've
Mhm.
all visited websites where for one reason or another the user experience is just not there, and it is not just a website killer, it's a digital marketing effort killer.
Yeah.
Whether you're leading people on social media to your website with click-throughs, whether you're throwing up QR codes in print media around the city that you exist in, whatever the case may be, increasingly in our digital world, we like our goal as brands and as companies is to get people to our website.
Mm-hmm.
So if your social effort is flawless, if your print effort is flawless, if your emails are great, but you're leading your audience to a website that's not user friendly, that is difficult to understand, that's inundated with too many things happening, or it's confusing, or whatever the poor UX experience is presenting itself as, nobody's clicking around. You can see
Mm-hmm.
right there, we all have finite mental calories. And if it takes us too long to figure out a website, we're just going to the next one.
Yes. Well, and the other thing we have encountered, there's a lot of different ways to do websites now. You can go on to some place like Squarespace or Wix and do your own website.
Mm-hmm.
Will it be what it could be? Probably not, but you can
Right.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also go to someone who's a really stellar designer and let them do your website. It'll
Mm-hmm.
be beautifully designed, but what we found is it may be cryptic. It may not be, might not be enough attention put on the messaging or the ease of use. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing that we see is websites that have so much stuff, and you go to the first page and you're just scrolling and scrolling and your eyes are all over the place, and you
Yeah.
honestly, you don't, you get overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
and you wander off. It's
Yeah.
typically what happens. So we see cryptic, we see too much information, we see generic.
I think
um
another thing too to add to that list is some brands that simply try too hard to be different.
or cool.
Or cool, right? Just a little bit too unique. You want to stand out, sure. You want to
Mhm.
have a website that's memorable, but at the same time, you don't want, a bunch of stuff flipping upside down for no reason as somebody scrolls that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And things like that that might sound cool internally because the goal is to stand out, and we understand that might not be very pleasing for your audience.
Mhm.
And that effort to stand out or be different or create something unique might actually
Mhm.
hinder like the user experience more than you mean it to.
Right, right. I hope we're going to talk about copy somewhere in here because I have a lot to say about that too.
We've got a little bit of copy in here.
SEO, we see this all the time. Research your keywords, know that it needs to be a part of your site. One of the things that we see a lot of people do is they give their website to someone who says, "Yeah, I can do it on Wix or Squarespace or even WordPress." But when it comes to us, because a lot of times we do end up redoing those websites or we help optimize them, we look on the back end and there's been no SEO work done. No keywords, no descriptors, no photo tags, nothing.
Mhm,
And that's a lot more common than you think. So, one of the things you really want to pay attention to is that SEO. Sometimes it's hard to do
mhm,
because Google likes 13, like a grade level of eighth grade. A 13-year-old should be able to read it really easily.
mhm,
And what happens when you write at that level, sometimes it's hard to cover like really technical topics or write good marketing copy. However, what Google is informing you of with that guideline is make it easy to read and more people
mhm,
will read it. So there's
mhm,
something to that. The other thing is just filling out all those little things on the back end of that page to make sure there's a keyword that's been selected and prioritized in the copy, that it appears in the headers and in the body, that it appears in the photo name, that it appears as in the page title at the beginning, not at the end.
right.
There's all these little tricks that you use to get an article or a page to rank higher on Google, and
Mhm,
it is worth the effort. The other thing that Google likes is if you want to max out your SEO, you want to have regular contributions from people who have some type of expertise. Google
right.
is starting to pay attention to the authors of articles, and they are able to, with the spiders that go out and crawl the web, they are able to look at the blogs and the content you're posting to take note of whether it's repetitive, whether it is deep with solid information instead of very surfacey like something you'd get on AI.
Mhm,
Excuse me. And they're actually Google is actually now detecting AI copy and
mhm.
delisting it and ranking it further down the
Yeah.
algorithm. So it's one of those things you really want to pay attention to. Anything you got to add there, Kylie?
I think your point about AI is just it's a big one to really hone in on. And we've said this before. If you can't take the time to write it, why should your audience take the time to read it?
Yeah.
And I think that that goes just for SEO as a whole too, that it's certainly more effort when you're writing your website copy in any case when you're working for SEO and trying to
Mhm.
rank higher on Google. There's no way around it. It takes more time, it takes more effort, it takes a bit more research, but it is so those few extra hours that you'll spend in research mode to get there are so worth it for really, like, in a lot of cases, organic results.
Mhm.
We have some clients that, of course, they're a little bit niche, but they are able to reach their audience and people that may not follow them on social
Mhm.
because they're so well optimized for Google and for search engines. So it's just we can't overstate how important SEO is.
Mhm. So don't let your web person ignore the SEO aspect. Some people say,
Yeah.
"Oh, no, the website's done," and everybody's happy and they go away, and then 9 months later, we end up getting the credentials and going, "Ooh, somebody forgot."
Yep.
It does happen more than you think.
Exactly.
Brief is best. Oh, we're gonna talk about words.
I know, right?
This is exciting to me because I one of the things that we do as social media specialists is we like to write short, easy to understand, no teasing unless it's purposeful, no guessing. We don't want people to ever have to guess. So, brief is best. The more descriptors you use, the more flowery you go, the
Mhm.
more your consumer has to get work harder to get to the end of that sentence before they know what you're talking about. And I have watched AI copy get more and more popular, and one of the things that I notice is that you get 2/3 of the way through the sentence and you get lost because there's this clause and that clause and this list, and just keep it
Right.
short. People just want the brief details of a situation because we're all
Mhm.
busy. A paragraph of copy can look intimidating these days, right, Kylie?
Oh, absolutely it can. I think that we've talked about this before in our live events as well. We read in our company book club Smart Brevity a few months ago. And I think in the
Great
world
book.
that we live in, oh, such a great book, highly recommend. I think in the world of social, in the world of websites, in the world of digital marketing as a whole, it could not be more relevant to what we
Yeah.
do. And we've all visited a website that is just, you get there and it's words, 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 paragraph
Dense.
after paragraph, so dense. And you think about, as you're clicking through a website in any industry, and of course, there's some that, require a little bit more explanation, or some pages
Yeah.
where, at least you give your audience the option to continue reading. Excuse me, continue reading, but that's just it. Make it an option, not a must, in order to like get through and understand your website.
Mhm.
And I think, there are certain things that feel important to us as, the people behind a brand that are not, just quite simply, as harsh as it may sound, important to the audience. They
Yes.
don't, it's good to introduce your team. They don't need every member of the team's life story.
Mhm.
Truthfully, nobody cares. Same with the entire, if you're selling a product, the entire evolution of how we got to this point, things like that, they're just not necessary. If you want to give your audience the option to continue to read those things, sure. But in most cases, people just want to know how you can help them.
Mhm. That's about it.
Yeah, right.
And make it quick.
Right, exactly.
White space. Oh, I love white space, but I'm
Right.
I'm being very wordy, so I'm gonna let you take this one, Kylie.
Perfect. That's so funny. I think talking about being brief is a great segue into intentional white space, because you visit a website, whether you're inundated with words or too many photos or too many videos or too many graphics or whatever the case may be, if there's limited white space, it's just going to feel busy and overwhelming
Mhm.
and unappealing, really. There is, on the flip side of that, a line where if there's too much white space, things look very bare, they look boring, they look unfinished.
Mhm.
And finding that balance of intentional white space where things just look clean, sleek, unintimidating is so important. just to appeal like visually and aesthetically to your audience,
Mhm.
because we all like to look at pretty things more than we like to look at things that overwhelm us, right? So
Right.
finding that balance and what that looks like for your demographics is so important.
Yeah, I would add back in the days of when I was in print design, people would talk about white space as giving the eye a place to rest. So you talk about mental calories. White space helps reduce the mental calories.
Yeah.
But I agree, too much white space and you end up with a unfinished look. I mean, it
Yeah.
really can be like, did you even design it? If it's got too
Mhm.
much white space, it can look unprofessional.
Yeah, exactly.
Best photos and videos only. Now, of course, there are exceptions to every single rule, but try to avoid any photos. If they're not big enough, then get new photos or use
Mhm.
stock photos. There are a lot of stock libraries that have very unique images and very high quality, beautiful images that you don't see anywhere else.
Mhm.
We have noticed that we really typically don't see the stock images that we use repeated out there in the world. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But blurry and grainy photos can make you look like you don't know what you're doing because your website represents you.
Mhm.
Don't use assets on your website just because you have them. This is a
Yeah,
really cool thing that happened, but we didn't get very good video, but we're going to use this anyway. Don't do it. Next time, learn from that. Next time, make sure you've got, somebody there to shoot some solid, good quality video for you because it
absolutely.
does make a difference.
Yeah. I think we've run into some situations in the past as well where like just kind of what Lori said, just because you have something or just because the memory behind it was cool or
Mhm.
the event was cool or you were being given an award or a donation or whatever the case may be, that does not mean there's a place for it on the website.
Yeah.
We in the best situations for us and the way that we work, we will have so many assets, videos, and photos to use and to pull from. However, that doesn't mean that we need to stress over using all of them, especially
Mhm.
at one time. It
Mhm.
goes back to brevity and it goes back to white space as well. Trying to make a place for a photo or a video simply because it exists is not worth it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fit, if the quality is, subpar, then it's better to pivot and see what else we can do than to present something that's not really up to the standard that it should be for a brand.
Absolutely. You are being judged,
Yeah,
whether you like it or
you are
not.
being judged very harshly.
We
Yeah,
all are.
exactly.
Mobile, mobile, mobile. Another thing we see is people design websites on their computers and they forget to go look and see if it's actually going to work on
Mhm.
mobile. And we say you should prioritize mobile because I think probably 80% of people are looking at websites on their mobile phones now. So make sure that
Yeah,
it's accessible, that it's easy to navigate, that things are where people expect them to be, the menu bars, all that,
yeah,
and that the photos are really nice, crisp, attractive photos. Anything else to
absolutely.
say about that, Kylie?
I think this one in a lot of ways speaks for itself. I think an important thing to note is that nobody is immune to by the time a website's pretty much finished and close to being ready to launch. We're all tired. We all just want to, get it launched and get it ready to go and get it in the client's hands and be done with it. But if you're not testing for mobile when in
Mhm.
I would argue the vast majority of cases and audience demographics, that's where people are viewing your website from, then things get lost and things get missed, and a desktop experience is very different than a mobile
Mhm.
experience. So you really need to take as deep of a dive in proofing and in just looking over every little nuance on mobile as you do on desktop.
Absolutely. Process for updates. This is really fun. This kind of ties into what we just talked about,
Mhm.
that we often run into situations where a client will call and say, "Hey, this menu that used to work on our website doesn't work anymore. Will you fix it?"
Mhm.
And that happens because all those little plugins and all those, different software packages and platforms that communicate with each other to make a website work, somebody will do an update and it'll affect all the other apps and all the other plugins and things that are part of that site
Mhm.
to cause little hiccups. So it's really good to have somebody to do regular maintenance for you, to have, a web developer receive emails from the platforms. If you are a person who doesn't do websites,
Mhm.
let your web guy get those emails so that he can go in and fix those things, or your web woman, so that they can go in and fix those things and you're not, ignoring it, or your website might not be functioning and you weren't even aware of it because you haven't been on it on mobile. So you don't know that menu's messed up from that update that WordPress did.
Right.
Have a web guy in your pocket, web
Yeah.
person. And when I say guy, I mean person.
Mhm.
But don't just expect it to be, done and over with and you never have to spend another dime,
Yeah.
because you will need to do regular updates in order to keep it working as it should, and all the buttons going to the right
Yeah.
places, and to make it an easy experience for your consumer.
I
So,
I think another piece here too is things as simple as updating event calendars or your events page, or things, just
mhm,
little things like that that need, oh, so we're highlighting this event on our website and now a month has passed and nobody thought to take it off the website, right?
yeah.
If there's not a process for things like that, or if it's not tasked to one, maybe two specific people to keep up with things like that, it's going to get missed, and you're going to, have somebody visiting your website a month after the fact and say, oh my gosh, they can't update their website.
Mm,
And as we said, people are judging, they are.
they're
And
judging you.
we're all human and stuff happens, but a process, for somebody at least to keep up with the things that need updating on the website, and talk to the web guy, web person, and let them know. That's just, it's a simple way for it to just lie in the hands of somebody that is at the very least going to stay on top of it and alert
Mhm.
the person that needs to go make the changes, so we're just staying as current and as timely as we can.
Yeah. And I would add too that your domain name registration, which is basically the fee you pay to keep your URL that you currently have, and your hosting package billing, those two things, those emails need to go to more than one person.
Yeah.
We have seen people lose their websites, lose their URLs, have sites go down because the person that gets the email, it goes into their spam, or they don't know what it is. So they just scroll by it and it just sits
Right.
in the bottom of somebody's inbox. So make sure that another person besides you is getting that email, just so you don't lose access.
Hmm.
Proof, test, proof, test.
Yeah.
Proof, proof, proof. This is
Exactly.
hard,
Yeah.
and we get it. And we oftentimes, when we're doing websites, we're meeting with the client, and we proof it, then we give it to the client, and then they proof it, and then we make those changes and we proof it again,
Hmm.
because QC is really critical. You don't want a typo on the front page. You don't want
Right.
a button that doesn't work. You don't want a video that you're really excited to show your consumers, they click it and it won't play. You
Mhm.
want to make sure that when your site launches, it's good to go, it functions well, and that if there is any, little hiccup along the way, that it gets caught. So
Mhm.
that's just a really important step.
Yeah, absolutely.
PSST, cheaper isn't better. S No, it's not better. It is not
Right.
better. As I mentioned when we got started today, you can get a website for 350. You can make your own Wix website. Is it going to truly represent you in the way you want your organization to be represented?
Mhm.
It's worth the investment.
Yeah, it really is for so many reasons too. I think your point, Lori, that you want to represent yourself and your brand in the right way, and in a way that
Mhm,
really reflects the quality and standard of the behind the brand. Um, I think too, you want something that you can be really proud of, and
mhm.
by doing it yourself on something like Shopify or Wix or whatever the case may be, you can, like, absolutely, there's pride to take in doing it yourself. However, you are trying to sell something, right? Whatever
Mhm.
the case may be, whether you're a nonprofit and then you need donations, if you're selling a product, if you're a restaurant, whatever industry, whatever the case may be, there is a purpose to why you're doing what you're doing. And by trusting professionals with a lot of experience and a lot of expertise that know what audiences respond to and what audiences need to see because they've done the research and they've done it before, you're a lot more likely to generate the kind of results that you're hoping for from your website.
It will also tell you that you're much less likely to get hacked. We
Yes,
did have
very true.
we had a site we did for a company, and the IT guy said, "No, no, no, I'm gonna take care of that secure socket layer." And about 9 months later, I don't know how it came up, but I went over to visit their website. They hadn't commissioned us to maintain it or anything. And I went over to look at it, and it had a big, like, letter Q that took up the whole screen, and then they were selling, like, lawn decorations or something on their website. It was so weird. The
Yeah.
guy had just not done it. He was the IT guy, he didn't understand how critical that was. He just
Mhm.
didn't do it, and they got hacked as a result. So it does happen, and if you're not paying very much, not that it has to be expensive, but if you're paying, $350, that kind of stuff won't be included.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
take us out, Kylie.
All right. Just a perfect segue talking about how I think websites are one of those things you get what you pay for. I think, everybody loves a good deal, everybody loves a bargain, but I don't know that there's anything more important in your digital marketing effort than making sure your website is solid.
Mhm.
And that's what we do. Like I said, we're website people. We love doing it. We love having something pretty to send all of our social media posts to for all of our clients. So
Absolutely.
we build websites with all of these tips in mind. Like I said in the beginning, we're pretty inundated with websites right now. So all of these things are at the very tip top of our mind.
Mhm.
And they're always pretty. We come up with templates or find templates that our clients always really like and that really represent the brand and the people behind the brand and what they want to present. So if you or someone are in need of a visually appealing and very user-friendly website, we would love to help you out and see what we can do to come up with something that works. So visit our website or message us for more info. Me and Lori are both open networkers and would love to talk more about your websites, your social media, your email marketing, whatever the case may be.
Yes, we are, all about those websites. We have, I think 4 projects in-house right now that are competing for attention, and it's fascinating to see sometimes the website may take a little bit longer to develop, but what you learn along the way makes it better in the end.
Mhm.
If you take extra time up front to really get that design where it needs to be, and lay it out in a way that's appealing and can then roll that out over the rest of the pages, I mean, it's worth the investment of both time and money to have a really nice website. So that's
Absolutely.
what we've got for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Get in touch with us if you'd like to know more. Take care.
Bye, everybody.